Okay, I hope this is working now. What I just said, this is my first live event they've ever conducted. So if you can't hear me, if you could pop something into the chat in the questions, that would be fabulous. Otherwise, I'll just remain here a little nervous until something goes wrong, I think, significantly. I might just give people a couple more minutes and we'll start efficiently at 7:05. Put that into the announcement, into the chat or the Q&A section. If someone would kindly tell me if they can hear the presentation, that would be very much appreciated. Okay. Give it 2 more minutes. Hey, is anyone able to confirm that the presentation is running for me just by going into the Q&A or sending a private chat? Oh, fabulous. Excellent. Thank you so much to those people who were able to put that in the chat for me. Oh, okay, now I can start, almost start, because it's at 7:05. It's pretty nerve-wracking when you do this stuff for the first time. Usually I'm used to doing it with a class so I can see everybody in the class, but obviously this time is a little bit different. All right, so welcome to the Urban Engagement Parent Briefing session. Oh, no, how do I do this part? Sorry. Oh, there we go. Excellent. So, an urban engagement briefing session. As we start with all official events at St. Bernard's, we start with the acknowledgement of country. So we acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners and custodians of the country on which we gather. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. In the spirit of humility and reconciliation, we commit ourselves again to the listening to the ancient wisdom that resides in the dreaming of our First Nations people, so that we may learn to live in harmony with one another and with the earth that it is our common home. To lead into a prayer, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We turn to you, our God, creator and sustainer of all, the one whose life animates all living things, the ones whose being we all share. Be our wisdom, be our light, be our listening, be our seeing. Be in us the kindness others seek. Be in us the gentle love that forgives. Be in us justice, peace, courage, creativity, life. Be in us now and always. Amen. In this St. Bernard of Clairvaux, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. Father, Son, Spirit. Okay, so guess I should probably introduce myself then. So my name is Jeanette Glynn. I would have taught a few of your sons when they were in year 7 and year 8, or perhaps some of your elder sons. I've been at the college for about 15 years now, not quite as long as Mark Reedy, who's our urban engagement director. So Mark, you're very familiar with, as he was our assistant principal for learning last year. He has designed the whole program, and I am implementing the program for term 4 with your sons. So I'm hoping to do the rationale for the urban engagement program justice, and hopefully, I'm not sure if Mark's listening in tonight, hopefully not, he should be on long service leave. But what the rationale is for our urban engagement program is basically to try and bring together research and the keystones or touchstones, sorry, for our Edmund Rice schools. So at St Bernard's, we have our 4 touchstones: liberating education, gospel spirituality, inclusive community, and justice and solidarity. So I'm just seeing what's coming up next. And so within our school motto, you'd be familiar with discere et agere, meaning to learn and to do. I like to think of it to do and learn as we're doing things. And our other school, sorry, I've got some urban engagement emails coming through as well, so they will need to wait. To engage with the world outside the school gates. So what are we really trying to do in this program is, and what I truly believe in, otherwise I wouldn't be in boys education for the last 15 years, is that you give us your most precious things, your sons, and my job, my only job, is to prepare them for the world beyond our gates, so they can be successful. So every action that I take in my teaching world, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be with your boys in the urban engagement program, it's to actually give them skills that's going to allow them to be their best versions of themselves when they leave St Bernard's. So this is Mr. Reedy's, I'm using a lot of Mark's materials, all of Mark's materials, in fact. So what he's got here is this learning pyramid, and our journey that we have had ourselves, we've gone through education, maybe at a tertiary level and at a secondary level, it really focused on the top of this pyramid here. So there's lecturing, the reading, and maybe we get a few pictures, and maybe we get shown how to do stuff every now and again. I know that's what my education was like. But interestingly enough, when it comes to actually learning, 90% of people will learn when they're actually teaching someone else something. And I know that through experience, that the more you practice, the better you get at something. So 75% retention, and actually having the opportunity to discuss ideas. So the idea of building knowledge in a community has a better retention rate, and where people will learn more is about 50%. So within this program, it's really been built around these participatory teaching methods. So basically the doing, the learning and the doing, which is within our crest. So it kind of sounds a bit bizarre that we have gone through this whole passive teaching methods through our own educations in primary, secondary. Actually, primary is pretty hands-on, and then into tertiary. So keeping this in mind, I'll show you this graph here, which I think is, I'm a math science teacher, so I find it really quite interesting. So this idea of when we start to lose enthusiasm as we go through school. So I don't think there's anyone in the world would say that, you know, that 15, 16-year-old person, whether they be male or female, is actually a little disengaged from what is going on. So what we've got here is we've got the year level running along the bottom, K being kindergarten, and up on the y-axis we have the percent of students who love school, and we have a natural decline through kindergarten where they love school, just love going, love their primary school teachers, love it towards the end of towards the end of primary school, and then it starts to really drop off. And then it's at that really year 9 that we see particularly boys just become disengaged in the traditional modes of secondary schooling. So if we've only got less than 40% of people engaged, well, we need to change the program and how we're actually doing it. And this disengagement around this area was sort of spotted, maybe about 25 years ago within literature. And Mr. Reedy was at St. Bernard's about 25 years ago, along with another leadership team, and that's when they started to design and implement the Santa Monica program, where they have purchased the land and then have built a curriculum around it to remove our Year 9 students from the St. Bernard's campus and giving them another experience in which to learn and to bring those skills back to their real world and then apply those. And that has been the impetus as well for the Year 9 urban engagement. So now we've got the students, again, leaving their parents, the school, and actually being challenged in different environments to develop new skills and, again, apply them in their real world. So as I just said, that kind of idea of, well, how do people really learn? They learn by doing, they learn by getting their hands on things, they learn by speaking to others, and they learn by practicing. That is what's led to the design of the Santa Monica program and the urban engagement program. This whole idea of bridge to adulthood, like when I started St. Bernard, Santa Monica was, the bridge to manhood type idea. But when we take it back a couple of steps and we think about, like on an evolutionary sense, 300 years ago, boys around this period of time, around this Year 9 age group, were starting to undergo rituals of rite of passage type rituals and learning new skills to survive in their next role of adulthood. So it's not to be unexpected that when we get to this Year 8, Year 9 area, that the boys are really starting to drop off, and we need to change the approach to how we're teaching them to get the best out of them, and so they can get the best out of the options that they are presented with as well. So within our urban engagement program, how it's been designed is basically to learn in a more adult environment. So most of you'd be aware now that our setting is a Catholic theological college. So we have a lot of becoming priests, becoming nuns, and so a very, very adult environment. The library is very quiet, and so we're hoping that I've observed the boys, they are super quiet up in the library. They're super respectful. It's really lovely. We want the boys to be able to have opportunities to make decisions around how they're going to approach their work and the topics and the team that they're working in, take personal responsibility for their learning. I think that's something that has really dropped off over a couple of COVID years as well, that they really don't understand how to take on the responsibility, and that each effort actually improves their learning. To develop a better understanding of themselves and explore the challenges and benefits of teamwork. If you've got any questions at this point, if you can pop them into the chat and I'll try to answer them as I go. So what I'll work through now is the first 4 weeks, or only 4 weeks of the program, and the tasks that they do and where the assessments are. So week 1, we kind of follow these themes. We've got liberating education. So we kind of, this is where we take the boys, bring the boys into CTC, and then they explore Melbourne. So we've got the usual program looks like an exploration of Melbourne, so an introduction where they do like an amazing race around the city, timed. They've got certain amount of minutes to get from place A to place B, where teachers are there handing them envelopes with their next clue. So it's just like, the great race. They're in allocated groups, so our year level leaders describe these, allocate these groups to begin with, so they're not with their mates straight up. So we don't want them with their friends straight. We want them to feel a little bit uncomfortable, so they're going to make some more of the right choices. In addition to that, we have a whole class excursion to the Melbourne Museum, and we start our first assessment task. So we start to introduce that at the end of week 1. Additionally, they have a program where they choose 11 hours of activities that they would like to do. So they're actually selecting the activities and then going out and exploring those in their groups. So it's a really, apart from the first day where we're really directing them and showing them where they need to go, the rest is where the boys are actually taking responsibility, making their choices, choosing things that interest them, and then we develop the program around what they would like to do and where they would like to go. And that's still in their allocated groups. In our second week, it comes under the touchstone of gospel spirituality, but the theme we've given it is around giving. So where we actually go for our whole class excursions is to the Shrine of Remembrance, which is a fabulous experience. We are guided around by veterans in most cases. So the boys hear of the stories of how people have, what they have sacrificed, what they have given to their families and their country to produce what we have here. That is followed up with this city mission, city walk through there. So that is our front yard excursion, where we are meeting people who work with youth who don't have permanent accommodation, another term for homeless people, and how they try to get young people back into accommodation around our walk. Some of the boys have the opportunity to see where some people who are sleeping rough choose to sleep, and just try to get a little bit of an idea around that. Our big issue excursion is looking at how people become marginalised and what marginalised people actually look like, and then how the big issue mitigates some of those barriers and allows people to make a salary using the big issues that are published. I'm sure you've all seen them around. So within this week, in our last group, we actually had some of the students make up little lunch packs and then offer them to people as well if they were not looking like they had permanent accommodation, or you know, might have just been a bit hungry as well. So we've built that all into our theme of giving for that week. At the end of this week, they produce an issues assessment task. So on the final night, where you all come into the parent evening, we will have these massive boards around, and the boys have all been doing investigating a particular issue in the city. For week 3, got justice and solidarity. So our whole theme for this one is sustainability. So basically, you know, doing our earth justice and working together in order to save our planet effectively. So that whole idea of being sustainable. We do a walk around Melbourne, the sustainability walk. We explore the botanical gardens and carbon capture of the plants there and how they are planning for the future. And we also go to Ceres, which some of you may have been at. So that's an environmental and recycling centre where the boys can pick up some extra tips for their gardening, or have an opportunity of how to upcycle ideas, or come up with new products to recycle, to give old products a new life. And this is where they start to be introduced to their Secret Life of Melbourne passion project, where they are in self-selected groups. So they continue working on that into week 4, where we have inclusive community. So our current group is just working through this at the moment, and we've got this theme around culture, where the boys actually start to really look at their own culture and what informs their action, and unconscious bias. So when they look at somebody, they can't tell someone's story, so why they are, you know, excluding them or thinking this about them. And it's really an interesting journey for the boys. So where we go down to the Jewish Museum, the Immigration Museum, and then we finish off with an Indigenous walk through Melbourne, so they can start to really develop an idea about what feeds into Australian culture, but also into their own personal culture as well. We finish on the Friday with an Indigenous liturgy, and we complete our Secret Life of Melbourne project, and that's due at the end of the week. And then you have the privilege of seeing those 5-minute videos that the boys will make, and you'll see them on the family evening, where we'll share a meal as well. Okay, no questions so far that I can see. I think that's actually I do, James. James, yes, we can see the presentations in here. Oh, thank you, James. Excellent, thank you so much for everyone. let me know that you can hear me. So over the 4 weeks, there's those 3 assessment tasks. There's the big issue, or the big question, sorry. The big question, so that's our issues task, where they're working in allocated groups. The secret life of Melbourne, where they choose something that's not necessarily so obvious. So for instance, they might love football in the MCG, but instead of just doing the MCG, they will try to find something that's different about the MCG that you won't find in glossy magazines or you won't see on travel shows. Something like the statues that are around the outside and why those particular ones have been chosen, for example. And the third assessment that I haven't spoke about is reflective journaling. So at the end of each day, the students will be writing between 300 and 500 words, reflecting on whether it be an excursion that they've had in that day and then another event during that day. So what we're trying to get the boys to do in this case is think about how their day has impacted them and being present in their setting. So what they can hear, what they can see, what they can smell, how that made them feel and therefore act, or how they might change a behaviour in the future. We're trialling at the moment writing that into paragraphs, so giving them a good English scaffold to create solid paragraphs so they can build on that when they get back to school, and then that will only support them in their BCE or alternate pathway, going into the real world, writing emails that actually make sense as opposed to lots of different listed ideas. So we're hoping the paragraphs will really pay off, and we're just going to see how this last group finishes off with them to decide whether or not the boys will stick with reflective journaling and almost sentence starters, and then they finish those, or whether or not we'll continue with the paragraph structuring, which I hope we will continue to do. So we spoke about the assessment task 1, the big question, some of the topics that they do look into, about homelessness and its significance in the city, about pollution in the CBD and how much of an issue that is playing on their lives, how the pandemic has affected the CBD, whether it's a positive or negative response to graffiti in Melbourne, traffic congestions, and looking at how Indigenous people are being treated in Melbourne historically and currently. You know, as we know, this is always coming up in the news, in the footy and things like that as well. So that's a really good one for the boys to investigate. And is the CBD overdeveloped? So within these tasks, they have to, where they start building their skills, I mean, getting some information out of your sons, I'm sure at times is quite difficult, but what they're challenged to do in this is not only do their background information, looking for their researching, but then they have to survey the public. They have to identify an expert in the field of their chosen area and get an interview from them. So there's a lot of planning to be able to nail down someone who's an expert in the field and to actually write good survey questions to be able to ask the public. Then there's the skill of actually approaching the public, approaching people in the public. How do you do it? How do you make sure you're doing it respectfully? We as adults, we've got these skills that we have developed over time, but at first the boys are actually quite awkward, as in how do I do it? So often we have to actually rehearse, you know, all right, pretend I'm da-da-da-da, come up and practice with me. How would you introduce yourself? How would you show there's no onus upon the person filling out the survey? Are they just going to ask them questions? Are they going to do it on apps? There's lots of decision making there and how the team's going to go about it. So the boys are actually developing a lot of skills in this activity. They then take these skills into their secret life in Melbourne, where they will be choosing to survey people, looking for an expert in their field as well, and then collecting all their information to make that 5-minute documentary. So what they end up with is like a bit of a clip that you might see on Getaway or on The Project, and that 5-minute clip is about something that they have chosen in their selected groups to do an in-depth exploration of that area. As I suggested before, looking at the statues around the MCG and telling the story of those statues and why they were selected, something that you wouldn't just see on a glossy magazine. Okay, so just been through the assessment tasks as well. So I'll just give you a moment to read through that. I think out of these 4 dot points, the one worth highlighting is the scaffolding and guided questions. So when the boys come in, they really are at a loss of how to start actually writing a reflective journal. So we have a series of a sentence starter questions to guide them into it. And then we work into creating our paragraphs, linking with English around the topic, the evidence, explaining that evidence, and then linking it to their next paragraph. So none of the boys are left high and dry. Throughout the whole program, we're giving them feedback around their writing. So they're actually improving their writing as they go. And from what I've observed in this last group we've just had, that really pays dividends. I mean, you and I would know that if you want a different word for questions and you can't think about it, you use the old synonym button. So you right click, you look for synonyms, and you change if you're using the word question twice, then you just change it slightly. Just little tips like that has improved the quality of your son's writing, will improve the quality of your son's writing significantly. Hopefully we'll see that in English in Year 10 in their marks there as well. So what we're focusing on for our assessments, so those key capabilities, personal and social capabilities, their intercultural capabilities, ethical, critical and creative thinking, and curriculum areas coming into civics and citizenship and digital technologies. So the boys have to learn how to use, how to do surveys on different apps, how to actually use iMovie and put their things together. Some of them have been using drones in the city for their filming and things like this as well. So they're really getting out there and figuring out how best to collect the information that they need and that they want to present to the audience, which is you guys. So I think this slide really does sell it a little bit short of the skills that your sons will develop. So again, where are we? So we're going to be at CTC, which is just near the Fitzroy Gardens here. One of the groups at the moment is actually doing their Secret Life of Melbourne on the Fitzroy Gardens. And so the boys are there for 4 days a week, the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday they're back at the Essendon campus so they can participate in their ACC sport in the afternoon. So how we staff it, every single day there's a minimum of 2 staff members. One is always, when we travel as a large excursion, we travel together with the students, and then after the boys might be selecting to go and do some investigative work, they let us know on their sheets where they're going, where they're travelling, how long, when they're expected to be back at CTC, and then a staff member returns to home base effectively. So the other teacher remains in the city, sort of spotting around in different spots where the students are expected to be. So there's a high probability of the boys running into a teacher as they're going about their business. So what a typical day looks like is, like at the start of the day, they arrive at 9 o'clock. We let them in, we come in, we do our morning prayer and reflection. We have a look at what we're actually doing for the day. And then during the day, the boys will be working in either whole class, small group, at the CTC base, or out exploring or collecting data, gathering information, and working on their projects. So often they work on their projects back at CTC, and also either in the classroom or up in the library as well. At the end of the day, we always come back together. We speak about the journal writing or a paragraph writing that we'll be doing. We push forward, like, what are we going to be doing the next day? And then we don't dismiss them any earlier than 3. When they're back at the Tuesdays, this is what their days look like, periods 1 and 2, or sometimes we flip them around depending on the teachers, but a couple of consumer math periods, and then careers curriculum, where the boys actually end up having the opportunity to start writing a CV. So then they can, when they turn of age, they can start looking for part-time jobs. And period 5 and 6, they've got their house sport. So you will have noted there, this is going to be altered for group 4. And what we're doing for the group 4 is when they return from our urban engagement program, they're actually going straight into their exams, which is also the case for the group that's at Santa Monica. So instead of investing time in the consumer maths, the school, in conjunction with us at the urban engagement, have decided that we're going to utilise those periods on Tuesdays for their teachers to actually do some revision with them as well. So they're not at a significant disadvantage to other people, the other students who are in their normal classes. What the boys need to bring every day: a laptop. They won't be going through the city with these. They'll stay at base. A charger. Funnily enough, so many of the boys' laptops go flat by the end of the day, so they do need to bring their laptop and charger. Their mobile phone for communication and camera use. This is essential. So if your son doesn't have a mobile phone, please make contact with us so we can come up with an alternate arrangement. So this is one of the safety features that we work into the program. Every time the boys leave CTC, that have their phone on them, I've got the school phone, which I'll share the number with you in just a moment. So they are contactable all the time, and I am contactable all of the time. So, and the expectation is that we call them, they pick up. If we say, hey, send us a selfie of where you and your group are, that they do that. So that's the way that we can track where they are. We see what's going on in the background. Oh, yep, okay, so they're near Fed Square. Yep, that's about where they said they were going to be. Perfect, no problem. So if you've got any concerns about the mobile phone, please make contact with me. The boys are expected to bring their tools, meaning their pencils, their pens, any other markers they might need. So as I said, some of the boys today who didn't turn up with pencils, you don't turn up to work with your tools, you don't have a job. So it's really essential that the boys do turn up with their job, and that will be their personal responsibility, not something for you to go on about at home. I'm sure you've got plenty of other things. When it comes to lunch, the boys love eating McDonald's. No surprises there. But I actually think it's because they feel safe at McDonald's, not because it's cheaper. That's just a safety zone. So they're being challenged on so many different fronts through the day that having McDonald's actually makes them feel safe and comfortable and then ready to re-enter for the second half of the day. So they do need some money. Many of the students bring their own lunches, so feel free to, there's no expectation that they will eat the food in the city, so feel free to for them to pack their own lunches. Their Mikey cards need to be activated and topped up. And I've also just put here, consider ensuring they have a student concession. It's a lot cheaper. Or even the Mikey passes as well. We can buy a bulk 28 days and it works out about $5 as opposed to the $9 daily pass. So you, as a family, can do the math on that and figure out what is best for you and your family. And we always encourage the boys to pay attention to the weather, but no matter how cold it is, shorts are always a winner. All right, so what we will be providing: Wi-Fi access, material for, I forgot, backing up of collecting materials. Yeah, so we've got all of our external hard drives and memory sticks and whatnot. Our workspaces, so we've got our main base classroom, and we also have the library that we utilise as well. So what not to bring? Valuables, goes without saying. They'll just leave them around. So we don't want that. We don't want to have the chance for them to lose anything valuable. And large school bags. Now, the smaller it is, the lighter it is, the easier it is for them to move around. So when it comes to the attendance, it's really essential that when the boys come in, they cite us. We always do a head count and roll call. So they'll be signing in when they get there in the morning, and then when they return to base after they've been out on excursion or they've been out exploring and gathering data. So whenever they leave, how they leave, they never leave individually. They're always travelling in their group, usually the group of 4. In the second and the last 2 weeks, sometimes they might be travelling in pairs, but they'll never be out of CTC individually. That every time that they are going out, we require them to complete an outing form, where they're going, who they're expecting to interact with, how they're getting there, and when they will be returning home, in addition to actually circling it on the map to make sure it correlates to where they're saying they're going to be. And then we have a visual about what area they might be travelling in as well. So it makes it easier for us to target where a staff member is going to be to increase the chance of them bumping into us. Okay, so as I said, no one will be allowed to leave by themselves during the daytime or anytime. This phone number that you see on your screen now, this is the phone number for the lead teacher on the program. So this used to be Mark Reedy's number. This is now my number. Please pop it into your phone, and if your son happens to be ill and is not coming in, feel free to send us a message. Well, do send us a message to let us know, or if they're running late, and your sons will be doing that as well. So if something's gone wrong on the train, we give them this number, the school phone number, so they can communicate with us, letting us know if they're running late or if something's happened on the way in, and we collect their phone numbers as well, as you probably guessed before, for us being able to contact them. So we have the same expectations as attending at the Essendon campus. I actually think it's probably more important, and why I say that is because we've had some students who, when they miss a day, they come in, they're like, oh yeah, and you can actually see they're not gaining the same degree of insights and skills around planning and how to work together as a team. So I think we had one person miss 3 days in a row, and yeah, it was really detrimental. And that's, even though that was the second week, it's impacted now on his fourth week as well, just how he's working in the team. So it's quite interesting. So please keep all exclusions to a minimum, but obviously if they are unwell, please keep them at home. Now, this bottom one here, if they're late coming back from their planned outings, they must make contact with us. The idea is if they make contact with us and it's reasonable, that's fine. The number of minutes that they're late, that's how long they stay with us. If they don't make any contact and we have to contact them to find them, then they double their time. So just general matters, safety. I think I've run through quite a few of the safety components, being around our phones, our location, our positioning of staff through the city. Our uniform is particularly important for keeping the boys safe. Within the city, there are a lot of ex-St Bernard students, construction sites, through to, you know, lawyers walking through the city. So that uniform protects them as a group because they're identifiable. And additionally, if something is to go wrong, they're easily identifiable, and then we can get straight onto it if a member of the public is to notify us. When it comes to footwear, the boys will do somewhere between, you know, anywhere between 10 and probably 25,000 steps a day. So having some good runners. Please don't go out and buy anything, just their normal runners will do. If they've got 2 pairs to choose from, the black one, the darker colour to match the uniform would be preferred. So food, we encourage them to eat diversely, but as I said before, they tend to always head back and to their safety ground, which is some sort of fast food. They were really surprised that they could get a pizza from Domino's for $5, and that was from one of our previous groups, and suddenly they all realised that was a little bit more value than good old McDonald's. So when it comes to that homework, when it comes to the homework, if the boys doing their work at home is not working, then what we will do is revert to the program where we had the boys completing their journals before they left. So that means that at 2:30 we start our journal writing. The boys have to do a particular standard of work before they're allowed to head home and do it. But we're changing it depending on how each group engages. If they've got good engagement, they will go home. And we've got some kids who have been punching out 1,000 good quality, 1,000 words, and it's a lot to read through. But it just goes to show that when you trust them, they take it home, they engage with it, or when they're engaged, they're going to do the work, which is absolutely fabulous. So they do have homework, and if we change that at all, I'll send you an email and let you know as a family. So what I'll be talking to your sons about tomorrow is how to get to, or have the expectations around the program regarding behaviour and conduct, et cetera, and I'll be talking them through about how to get into CTC. So I live in Altona, but it's going to be a little bit of a hike, so I'm going to be catching the train up to Essendon Station on the first Monday of their program, so next Monday. I'll be there at 8:10 and then travelling on the 8:17 train straight through to Parliament Station, where I'll escort them off, and then I'll show them the 2 tram options that they can take to catch it down to CTC. Or if it's a lovely day, we'll walk. We'll see how it goes, but just so they can start to orient themselves within the city. Thankfully, the rules have changed over the school holidays, and our face masks are now optional on public transport. Oh, okay, so a little picture of CTC there. So that's what it looks like out the front. We do encourage you, if you can and you've got the time, just to do a little bit of a dry run with the boys, just to ease some anxieties if your son is that way inclined, or your anxieties as well, I'm sure, about where your sons will be going. All right, so where you can get your information from. So you've already received your urban experience or urban engagement handbook and risk assessment and the approximate program outline for a normal program. Tomorrow your boys will be signing off on agreeing to expectations to be part of the urban engagement program, and I'll be sending them home as well with a separate hard copy consent form. So this will actually be in addition to the SynWeb permissions form. It's just so we are confident that you understand explicitly that there will be periods of times during that school day where your sons are not directly supervised by a teacher. So we just need that signed off on SynWeb, and then your sons will bring the hard copy home tomorrow afternoon as well. There's always our additional information on My SBC under the Urban Engagements tile, which you will see here underneath our illustrious YLLs and our Dean of Students for 7 to 9. So if you head into this urban engagement tile, it'll show you the weeks, the touchstones, and all the information that you might like to view will be in there. Okay, so for your sons, group 4, next Monday is when we start, and then ends on Friday the 4th of November. So if you can please put Friday the 4th of November into your diaries. So that's the night that we have our family presentation night, where you're able to come in and view the work and celebrate. I guess celebrate is probably the best way to say it. The work that your sons have been doing over the last 4 weeks. So mark that in your diary. We start at 6 p.m, but I'll be emailing you for dietary requirements, etc., and how many people might be coming along much closer to the date. So that's the 3rd of October when your boys will be hopefully meeting me at 8:10 at Essendon Station. So for some of the programs, there might be some interruptions, and as I said, one of those will be the Tuesday, ensuring that your sons have time, an extra 4 hours with teachers for their main exam areas: humanities, English, science, maths. They're the 4 exams that the boys will be doing in the week following November 4. Okay, there's the details for the family evening at the bottom there as well. Okay, so I've never practiced ending this before. How do I do this? Ooh. Okay, so I'll just keep it like that. So I haven't got any questions in the stream here at all. Oh, actually, I've got one here. Runners with their school uniform or sport uniform? School uniform is a must. No sports uniform. It's a really good question. And the reason being, for me, the reason being is that when the boys are in their more formal uniform, it's easier for them to adopt a different type of behaviour. When they dress casually, they're a different animal again, if I dare say it that way. So when they've got their sports day on the Tuesdays, I'm pretty confident they're allowed to wear their sports uniform because they've got their afternoon normal sport. But when we're at the city, definitely our full school uniform. It also looks more professional for when they're approaching members of the public, etc. This presentation, as clunky as it has been, will be saved, and we'll be putting a link onto, I'll be sending you an email with a link if you'd like to view any particular part of this program again, or this briefing again. And in the next couple of days, you'll be receiving an email from Miss Wilson for that online synergetic SynWeb permission, and your sons will be coming home with a hard copy of the permission form as well. I'll just give you a moment to see if there's any other questions that have come through. I hope I've done Mr. Reedy justice in this. But overall, the program, it's exhausting, but it's absolutely fabulous. Like, just the skills of the boys. One of the examples I'll give you is was the other week one of the boys was just, got the coloured pencils out, colouring furiously for his storyboard for his passion project, for his Secret Life in Melbourne project. I'm like, oh, Christian, you're working really hard there. And he's like, I said, oh, you look like, mate, might have been a little bit of a scallywag when he's in classrooms. I said, oh, mate, do you usually work that hard at school? He's like, nah, but this is really, really interesting, really fun, miss. And I was like, wow, so I've got this student who is just wanted to get 100%, like wanted to get the best possible mark for his group. And here he is with his coloured pencils, colouring in, shading his face and everything like that, just for a storyboard. And I just thought, wow, this is definitely working. And the boys have an amazing time. So I haven't seen any other questions come up in that chat. So I'll thank you all for taking the time to listen to me rabbit on for an hour. And if you've got any questions at all, please do not hesitate to contact me. And I look forward to seeing your sons tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday the 4th of November. I'll just end the presentation now. All right, have a peaceful night. Take care.